Buckle up, witches. It's time to talk about the Wheel of Time. Alright, I've got a lot to say about this one, so I'm gonna try to make it as quick as possible. Not only does this opening scene of Egwene's capture as a demonic really shows just how they see channelers as less than human when she's freaking patting Egwene on the head like she's literally a dog. Ew. Especially with her whole trying to act like they could be friends and almost wanting her and Egwene to be friends. In my mind, equivalent to saying, you should feel lucky and grateful because I'm one of the nicer slave owners. Ew, gross. And especially at the end when she just leaves the leash and the wristband hanging on the wall there in Egwene's cell is to me a blatant show of just how powerless Egwene is to do anything about it. One thing that I did want to point out from the costuming and costume design aspect in this scene that I noticed that I really liked is not only do we get this subtle nod to North American influence in Seanchan culture, with Robert Jordan having stated that the accent was originally supposed to be a Texan or Southern accent, and as we see in the show, a lot of the actors portraying Seanchan having just an American accent in contrast to the Westlanders. But in the costumes or uniforms of the Soldam that we see here, I really liked that we also saw this North American or even more like Mexican, Latin American influence with these Soldam's pointy-toed cowboy boots. Then we shift back to Lanfear and Rand, where she's got him supposedly captive in Teleran Riyadh, the world of dreams. And as I predicted, she's the one that reveals to Rand that Moraine is the one who manipulated him to go to Cairhien. And I could tell that even though he moved on with the conversation and because he had an objective to get to, that he had to kind of take a beat to come to grips with that reveal, because my prediction was that Rand was going to be really pissed about finding out that he was being manipulated in that way. But Lanfear also reveals in this conversation that she has been protecting Rand's dreams from Ishamael and that Egwene is in Falma. And all I can say about this scene is Rand al'Thor and Archie Andrews saving the world with the power of abs. I also liked Rand's line here at the end when he wakes up telling Moraine about the conversation that he has to leave because if she sees us together again, she'll kill you. Foreshadowing there. I really have to say that it's just something about Moraine and the way that they're doing her makeup or just shooting her in these scenes in Cairhien, and I know part of it is just that she's able to be kind of clean and done up for one in the show, but there's something in these episodes in the different shots of her that I think are somehow really conveying that sense of Aes Sedai agelessness, where from one scene to the next, it's really hard to pin a specific age on her. There are scenes where she looks in her 50s and just really worn down and tired, and then there are other scenes where she looks like very flushed and young and that smooth-faced Aes Sedai. So I don't know if it's just something they were doing with the lighting or the makeup, or if they were deliberately trying to go for that sense of Aes Sedai agelessness here, but they were, to me, kind of pulling it off. Then we are getting some Matt in this episode, which I was really happy to see. I loved his little line here to Min about finding another bartender to swoon after, which is just mwah, classic Matt. And then we go to Nynaeve and Elaine, who are bickering back and forth between each other, which is also, to me, just so authentic to their relationship in the books. When I saw Nynaeve and Elaine bickering, and especially the fact that the warder said something to them about it, I'm just like, get used to it, because we've got at least 3 to 4 more books of this. I also liked the subtle way that we see Rima's warder move closer to her, as if to comfort her and show just how unsettled she really is by everything that they're talking about, which goes a long way to just showing that bond between Water and Aes Sedai. Just wanted to point out a little Easter egg that Rima also name drops Tyr again in this episode, which we'll come back to later, but I think is another nod that that might be a location that we will see in season 3. Then, an absolutely gut-wrenching scene, we cut to Lanfear showing up to Liandrin, of all people, and quote-unquote doing her a favor by killing her son, which in my mind is just another demonstration of Lanfear being straight up ruthless. Once again, Leandrin's actress just absolutely killing it in this scene, even up against Lanfear's actress. Her pitiful pleas and sobs almost had me feeling sorry for her. It also provides an interesting contrast in this episode between characters like Lanfear versus Liandrin versus, say, High Lady Surath, seeing all of their different motivations and reasons for why they became dark friends and pledged themselves to the dark. Lanfear would look at Surath in particular and say that we are not the same and that their motivations and characters are totally different, and would definitely view Surath as someone who's just very much beneath her, not only in just standing and power level, but just also like attitude and intelligence level, let's be honest. Really, if you boil it down, Lanfear and Surath at the end of the day joined the dark for power and status. With Leandrin in this scene, we're also just further driving home the idea that, you know, she had her reasons for turning toward the dark. She wanted to protect her son or find a way to save him in some way, perhaps. But now, one of the Forsaken has just shown up and dispatched him like that. The entire reason that Liandrin pledged herself to the dark means nothing now. Like, not only does she really have nothing left to lose, in a sense, at this point, but yeah, like, she pledged herself to the dark for this, and this was her reward. I'm curious to see how that's gonna play out with her character going forward. But speaking of High Lady Surath, I just love that they took a moment with the scenes of her to give us Augier tree singing. I was just so thrilled to actually see an example of that, because it's not something that we really even get to see or talk about in depth even within the books. We know now that Ishamael wants Mat with Rand, you know, I think not only just for plot reasons because they were together in the novels, but also just wants Min's vision of what I'm calling the stabbening to occur. At first I was wondering, like, why, since his goal at this point is seemingly to keep Rand alive but turn him to the dark. But he was also been teasing Rand with the prospect of all of his friends turning against him and turning toward the dark. So maybe if he manages to put Mat with Rand and then get Mat to turn on Rand because of the dagger, that would just further drive home to Rand that yes, that is a thing that his friends are capable of doing. But man, I have to say that even as a book reader, see the scenes of Egwene's Damane training and them trying to break her are perhaps even harsher to see visually than they were to just read in the books. Especially just this attitude, this like almost patronizing sociopathic attitude that the Soldam has toward Egwene of like, aw, she thinks she's people. Ew, ew, ew. I think this is definitely going to have some serious implications further on down the road, not just for Egwene's character, as book readers know, but spoiler warning, so I'll put another timestamp in if you want to cut away from this. But later on, much later on, it is eventually discovered that the secret to the link between Soldam and Damane is that in order to be a Soldam, or someone who can control a damane or control the Adam, you also have to have a latent ability to channel yourself. So what happens then? And what will be the ramifications of that in Seanchan culture if that ever gets out? Then we get back to a land scene here, and this has definitely become, in hindsight, my least favorite plot line in the show so far, because it seems like just as part of the fallout or repercussions of the changes they had to make in the plot, especially with Moraine's storyline, that land is just really a loose end. And maybe it's because they're trying to portray him as being a loose end in the show, or maybe it's because he was just kind of a loose end in the storyline now and they didn't really know what to do with him, because it feels like they just didn't really know what to do with him at this point. He's traveling with Alana and her warders, and it's revealed that the Amerlin has been in Camelin this whole time, which is the second time now we've had Camelin name drop this season, so I think definitely goes to show further that Camelin will be a location for season 3. Upon reflection and knowing what we know about Lan as a character and his backstory, I feel like it's semi-public knowledge who he is and where he comes from, that I'm just like, seriously, how dare you accuse Alan Madragoran of Malkier of being a dark friend? How dare you? He would never. And at this point, I'm almost wondering, I had to even go look it up because I couldn't remember if it was ever confirmed in the books or not, if Alana herself was a black sister or a dark friend, just with the way she's coming off in certain scenes and her being placed with other characters in certain scenes, that maybe the showrunners want us to wonder if she herself is a dark friend. It's almost like, are you projecting on Lan at this point? Because why would they accuse him of being dark friend just because they found something that may or may not even be his in one of his bags? I don't know. This plot just doesn't make any sense to me, but I do like that we get some further little Easter eggs in regards to not just the Forsaken here, but just other story aspects that will come into play, such as, to go back and analyze this scene again further, because it's hard to tell how many Forsaken statues were present. I'm still seeing anywhere from 6 to 8 as the number of Forsaken we may get, which I'll come back to again at the end of this. They say some things like alluding to weaves that this age has forgotten, which is a big factor that comes into play in the last battle and fighting the Forsaken. And then Alana saying things like, what you are willing to do changes depending on what we're faced with, which I think does foreshadow a lot of other characters' choices throughout the novels, but I'm wondering if it will also allude to her choices later specifically. But like, sorry, the whole him wanting to find out where the Amerlin is and them thinking he's a dark friend thing is just kind of dumb. Like, now, not only does she know about the Dragon Reborn, but does she also know that it's Rand? And then we cut back to Rand having some visions where we see Matt in a vision with only one eye again. What's up with that? Oh my god, I squealed when Lanfear herself called Ishamael Ishi, which is his like fandom nickname. So I love that she also called him Ishi here. Yes, we are getting some little lessons in Teleron Riyadh from Lanfear in this episode, albeit brief. Just seeing a little bit more of how it works and how one can control things in there. Oh my god, no, Rand, do not point her at Egwene. I mean, in the intro scene between them, we did kind of find out that she knows about all of his friends and knew about Egwene and her name specifically already. When she was basically baiting him into, oh yeah, I'll take you to see anyone. Anyone. It's fine. Nothing bad will come of this. I was like, no, Rand, do not point her toward Egwene. But of course, that's exactly what he does. Even if I did think it was a nifty way for Egwene herself to get a little glimpse and intro into the existence of the world of dreams. And I had thought that maybe Lanfear was going to play up on her book character aspects of trying to steer Rand not only toward Falma, but specifically toward the Horn of Valere there and like the glory that it would bring, but instead it's just him finding out about Egwene being there as his reason to bring him to Falma to also fight the Shamael. She's also not really cluing him into the fact that, yeah, Egwene is there with the Seanchan and that he's going to show up and also have to face the entire Seanchan army, not just Ishamael. Surprise! We cut back to Rima, Sedai, the Yellow Sister, with Nynaeve and Elaine, where she hints that she knows a ship's captain who could get them out of the city, and it better be Bail Domon. I'm just waiting for him to show back up. But no, they decide they're going to stay, but I do like that we get a little scene here of Elaine trying to puzzle out the Adom and how it works, and recognizing that it's a ter'angreal, which is a nice little hint at some of her later talents. And I was just literally laughing and giggling at Barthanes basically calling Moraine Aunt Mo. That's my new favorite nickname for any character in the show now. Like, on him, Moraine Sedai is just Aunt Mo. And I think it's a little bit confirmed here and hinted at my theory that Barthanes and Moraine's sister are definitely plotting and trying to do something sus here about like finding out what Moraine is up to, whether it's just trying to find out what her plan is amongst themselves for their own knowledge and well-being, or something deeper is yet to be revealed. But I still think, going off of what we know of like the Barthanes character in the books, that it still might turn out that one and or both of them could be dark friends. I love the little Easter egg here when we get the glimpse of the seal of the Flame of Tar Valon and the appearance finally of the Amerlin Swan. I was thinking that maybe she was going to be there in Cairhien just for the royal wedding, but it ends up being Lan who shows up and gets her to go to Cairhien, which I was just like, okay, I guess. But I am wondering if, since Swan's background is as a fisherman's daughter in Tyr, the knives that we see her bringing out and channeling in her little knives out channeling moment were like fish boning knives, because that's kind of what they looked like to me. But I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about hunting or fishing or fish gutting or scaling, so let me know if that's also what you think they might be. Interesting little scene here between Rand and Logain. I was really hoping that Rand was also going to go back and meet up with his friend, the Aiel War veteran again, but he's just here chatting with Logain, and Logain has a little moment where he sees Rand channel and he's like, blinded by the light. Rand we see here just not only with the sheer amount of power he can channel, but his increasing amount of instability is basically a nuclear weapon waiting to go off at any point in time, which is part of what made my male channelers be the ones that instigated the whole breaking of the world thing. I just have to say that the Matt is really matting in these scenes. I heart him so much already. His little teary-eyed reunion with Rand in this scene just brought a little tear to my eye, and I loved seeing them reunited. I think Rand here telling Matt about how he also abandoned their friends because he felt like they were better off without him. Matt here may be one of the only ones who can understand and empathize with that, because he did the same thing. And we cut back to Falma, where Rima, I was really happy to see, also hints at these strange beasts that the Seanchan have, because I was wondering why we hadn't seen them in my last video, and I'm really hoping that this means that like Grom and Rakan, etc. are confirmed and we're gonna see them. So holy shit, when I found out that they managed to collar a sitter of the Blue Aja, that just should really drive it home, not only to viewers, but also to Nynaeve and Elaine and the other Aes Sedai of the White Tower, just how dangerous and how much of a threat the Seanchan are to them. The Aes Sedai do see themselves as untouchable in a lot of ways. They have no rivals or competition because they're the only channelers in the Westlands, and in a lot of ways they are just safe and secluded in their literal ivory tower. This scene between Egwene and her captor, where she's trying to establish the link and how that bond between Soldam and Damane works, I would just be side-eyeing this woman like, what is all this we shit? This is my power. You're just literally leeching off of it. There is no we. Oh, of course Liandrin is a part of the Amerlin's entourage somehow, but I did not expect Lan to be the one showing up here to stop Rand from leaving, and I'm just like, why though? Cementing that he's firmly back on team do whatever Moraine wants. But cutting back to Falma again, I love that we are addressing Nynaeve's block further here because it's just a huge part of her character arc in the novels. But I was just absolutely gutted and devastated seeing this scene with the Yellow Sister, Rima Sedai, not only lose her warder, but be collared like that. And I was just in tears. She really sold it. The showrunners and editors really sold it with the editing and the music and just everything in this episode. I think was just a brutally effective way of showing us just how brutal the Seanchan are, as well as a way of cementing some kind of relationship between Elaine and Nynaeve as characters, because so far the only thing that's been bringing them and keeping them together is their love of Egwene. And like I said, their bickering and their butting heads will continue, but having to endure this experience together is, at least going to trauma bond them, if nothing else. Both times that I watched the ending of this episode, I was just in literal tears watching these scenes. And especially at the end when we see Egwene finally break and just how devastated she is at the fact that she finally broke, but then seeing that it is the former sitter of the Blue Aja next door and that she's trying to comfort Egwene almost by telling her not to cry, and that she held out even longer than her and elite among the Aes Sedai did, was just also heart-wrenching. But getting into like the next episode preview and predictions, I think we're finally gonna get the Rand Amerlin meet up, which is kind of a little outtake from the Faldara scene at the beginning of the Great Hunt that we're getting here in Cairhien instead. We do see a little brief scene of Rand and Lan doing some sword moves, so maybe we are gonna get Lan training Rand for all of 2 seconds. We're gonna see Rand meet Swan, and then maybe they're kind of hinting that like maybe Rand's gonna be the one that burns the Foregate, but it could also be a misdirection and it's Ishamael that does it. And I'm just wondering now, with Rand wanting to leave and not Matt wanting to go with him and then not, where does this leave Matt now, and where is he gonna go? Because he was following Rand and saw him get taken by Lan, so I'm wondering if he'll follow them still and try to help Rand out. No Perrin this episode, but hey, book readers are used to that. Am I right? We got entire books where there was no Perrin, and then books where it seemed like there was nothing but Perrin. Like I said, we got more name drops of Caemlyn and Tyr in this episode, so I think that is definitely hinting that those are going to be season 3 locations. I think we did see the Stone of Tyr in the background of an episode in season 1 when we were getting Swan Seanchan's background. I'll be curious to see Nynaeve now dealing with the repercussions of her block from this episode, with her not being able to control her channeling, getting not just any Aes Sedai captured, but a fellow Yellow Sister, a fellow healer, and also getting her warder, like her Lan, killed. But I have to say, for me, Madeline Madden as Egwene was definitely the MVP of this episode. I said in season 1 that she was one of the strongest actors in the bunch and was able to convey a lot with just her eyes and her facial expressions. Her being trapped in one room for the entire episode, she just had so much range of emotions. And a glass case of emotion. Just to give a little bit of extra background for those who are not book readers on the Seanchan culture and why they are the way they are. A lot of the Seanchan are not outright on the side of the dark, unlike Sura, but I think the show is really making it even more apparent, not only just that they are kind of just scum in and of their own right with the way that they treat female channelers, but I think that they're also making it even more apparent in the show that the Forsaken, aka Ishamael, have been influencing the world very subtly and slowly over the last 3,000 years since the breaking. I have this handy dandy Wheel of Time compendium here, and I think it has just been hinted at throughout the fandom and in canon lore that since Ishamael in the books was not fully sealed, unlike the other Forsaken, he was in some ways free to subtly influence things here and there, and that he may have been able to subtly influence not just Seanchan culture, but also either or both the White Tower in its early years and Arthur Hawkwing, to cause this rift between those two parties and make Arthur Hawkwing, who a lot of people in a lot of countries were able to rally behind, make him not just distrust but grow to outright hate Aes Sedai. And then, as a result of that, further influence his descendants in not only their motivations to go to Seanchan and take over that entire land, but also influence their prophecies and further that culture's prejudice toward channelers and eventual collaring and slavery of channelers and the view of them as dangerous objects instead of people. It was all slowly seeded by this subtle manipulation and wedge driven between the Aes Sedai and Arthur Hawkwing thousands of years ago, and it just grew and festered among his descendants until we see the result of that permeating all of Seanchan culture. I also wanted to reference my Wheel of Time compendium here because there was another interesting little Easter egg mentioned here by the Sul'dam Rena when she hints to Egwene that it was in fact one of their own Aes Sedai of the Tower who made the first Adam to control and collar channelers. In my book here, Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time, we get the full story behind that. The first Adam was made by an Aes Sedai, Diane, who brought it to Luthair Paindrag in an attempt to curry favor with him. She knew he had no Aes Sedai in his armies, and for the most part, the Aes Sedai hated him. Diane believed that Luthair would eventually win and felt she would be richly rewarded for bringing him a gift that could hand him power over Aes Sedai, willing or not. For her trouble, Liane was rewarded with having the Adam put around her own neck and becoming one of the first Damane herself. So her only reward was imprisonment by her own device. Because in their book, whether she helped them or not, she was a female channeler and thus dangerous and not to be trusted. Once the Adam gained regular use, the title of Aes Sedai disappeared completely from Seanchan, and those who could channel were renamed Marath Damani, or those who must be leashed. Now, in regards to Moiraine and her character here, because she is definitely kind of slipping further and further down the ranks in terms of of likability, relatability factor in these episodes. If I were to put myself in Moraine's shoes at this point, she is still trying her damnedest, despite having no powers anymore, to protect Rand at all costs. Even if it means putting herself in danger, putting her family in danger, ostracizing herself from her family, while still coming to terms with the fact that her entire life, as she has known it up until this point, has now changed. I still definitely think her sis is sus for just trying to goad her in these scenes into, I think, revealing info on Rand. But I'm curious after this season where Rand is going to go after Falme. Because in the books, Moraine wants him to go to Ilion first. She thinks that now that, the Horn of Valere has been revealed and he's been proclaimed as the dragon, that they will be the most likely to follow him and give him, an army. But Rand ends up going straight to Tyr, and so I thought that maybe we would not see Tyr right away, and that he would go either straight back to Cairhien or maybe meet up with the Aiel. But since we've seen Tyr now name drop in the show, and we saw the Stone of Tyr in the background in a season 1 episode, that they might follow the book and have Rand go to Tyr to try to get Kalendor next. And I think he's going to perhaps defeat Ishamael at Falme, but not really. But I'm curious to see in these next couple episodes how exactly Rand is going to get to Falme. I was hoping that maybe him or Matt or Min might hitch a ride on a certain person's boat, but we now know that the boat is down in Falme. So yeah, how's he gonna get there? Especially since, there's 2 episodes left. The clock is ticking for him to get to Falme at this point. And I'm still wondering if we're gonna get 6 or 8 Forsaken. I thought maybe it was going to be 6, but if it's 8, then I think we are definitely going to get Demandred as one, because I thought maybe he didn't have any huge roles to play toward the end, aside from just showing up being surprise bitches, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. But he does get into some major fights with some main characters in the last battle, so he is important. I would definitely nominate him as president of the Luz Theron Telemon Haters Club that I mentioned. I think I'm going to do an entire separate video sometime soon where I go through all of the Book Forsaken and dole out Forsaken class superlatives. But I think we're gonna get Ishi, Demandred, Ravine, and then it could be Asmodean. But since Asmodean's only role is to teach Rand how to channel, and we see that role being filled in the show right now by Logain, I'm wondering if we'll cut Asmodean for maybe Samael or another male Forsaken. And then we already know we're getting Lanfear, Grandal, and Moghedien, and I'm hoping that if there's a 4th female Forsaken, it is Semiraj, because she definitely has some major impacts on main characters and on the story later on. Since we didn't get, what's his name? Balthamel or Agenor, we're not gonna get Osangar or Arangar, which is fine. I was kind of mad on them in the books anyway, and I think that instead of one of them being the one to infiltrate the later Aes Sedai camp and buddy up with Egwene, that role will instead just be filled by Sheriam. And I think that we will also more than likely see the whole Bowl of the Winds plotline cut, because with the condensed timeline we're gonna get with the show, if they'll be emphasizing quite as much that the Dark One is corrupting the fabric of reality itself. So things like the weather are being out of whack. These bubbles of evil keep popping up more and more. But I think that whole storyline of some of the girls hunting the Bowl of the Winds is just going to be cut because it's way too similar to the plot of the hunt for the male Adam. I think that plot takes place in Tenchiko, and we have also heard Tenchiko name dropped in this season. So that's my my prediction. I hope that you enjoyed this little review and breakdown video as much as I am enjoying doing them. This was definitely a really good episode. As hard as it was to watch, I think the fact that it is so hard to watch means that the showrunners are doing their jobs. So with that, I will leave you until next time. Stay classy.